This is The Real Gig with Bret Alexander.
All right, Jeremy Hummel. I've been waiting to do this.
I'm happy to be here.
All right, buddy. We're going to do 2 episodes on this. I see you as having 2 main acts to your life and career, your musical life and career, anyway. And I want to start with, obviously, from the beginning.
Sure.
And I give an intro for everybody. So I'm obviously drummer, good pal of mine, educator, writer. You've written for Modern Drummer and other publications. I'd call you a writer. Is it assistant band director? Would that be correct?
Assistant marching band director.
Assistant marching band director.
Yep.
And many hyphens on your journey here. But we'll start from the beginning. I would say, in your case, I know you did come from at least somewhat of a musical family. Your dad played.
Yep.
Right? What was the name of your dad's band?
Well, there were several.
Several, but
he was in Chance for a while in the beginning, and then he was in Jason Grand.
Okay.
There's another band called Mutiny as well. And so they would play around here and, all the local bars and everything. And they rehearsed at our house. So that was always...
So you were around that as
I
a
was
kid?
always around that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and my kids too, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And my dad was a guitar player too. So he was not a drummer, but he's a guitar player. Yeah.
So how... what got you started?
So when I was 3 years old, and I think there's still a picture available of this, I was at a birthday party for my cousin, and I don't think that they do this too much anymore. Maybe, I'm not sure, but everybody would pass the gifts around. Like some families will pass around cards for people to look at. We would always pass around a gift. Oh, this is nice, what this person got. And my cousin got a toy drum, and the drum came to me. He never got the drum back. So like I did. I was like, I was so enthralled with it that I think that they just felt bad, like saying, "Hey, we have to take this back now." So I kept the drum, and interestingly, he went on to play guitar. So he all worked out. And so I got my first kit when I was 5. My dad saw an interest, and I have to thank him and my mom for supporting that. But like 5 years old, and then got my second kit when I was 9. And the cousin I was talking about, Adam, we actually started playing in clubs together when I was 9 years old. Now really? that wouldn't be unheard of today, just because of all the
playing bars.
Yeah, playing bars. But because my
bars at 9.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Yes, because my dad was in these bands, and back then there weren't really strict.
No, you could drink when you were 9.
No, I did not drink when I was 9, though. Yeah, no. Well, at least not
you
that
could
they know
if you
about
wanted
it.
to. Yeah. They didn't care.
Yeah. But they would just have us come open up for them. We could go in.
So you play an actual set?
Yes.
At 9?
At 9.
Nice.
Yes. So that cousin played guitar, and I played drums, and it was just the 2 of us, and we were called Lightning.
Lightning?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that was the name of the band. And a lot of people don't know this, but I played drums and I sang lead vocals.
You sang vocals?
I sang lead vocals back then. Yeah. So you imagine a 9-year-old. I still have some cassettes, actually.
Of you, really?
Yeah.
Of you singing lead?
Yes. We would
do. What's a couple? The band, obviously. Night Ranger has a drummer singer.
Yeah, totally. Yep.
There's another one that I'm thinking of. It's not Triumph. There's another band.
Phil Collins. Yeah, Don Henley.
There you go. Oh, those are huge ones. Yeah. Yeah. But that had sort of drummer frontmen in a way, you might say.
Yep.
That's super cool. Back to the passing the gifts around. Like my brain just goes to like, your birthday was 3 days earlier and you wanted a drum, and then your cousin got one, and then you had to keep passing it down the line. You're like, screw that.
No, that did not happen. Right. Yeah. No, it very well could have, but no. Yeah. Yep.
That's cool.
Yep.
Wow. Clubs at 9. I didn't probably 15 for me, and 15. Definitely not 9. I had a guitar when I was 9, but I didn't get serious at it till later.
I think I just was able to step into that because it was around, you know what I mean? Like in having a parent who was involved in music playing out.
Yeah.
And they used to always rehearse at our house. And I mean, I just love that. I mean, I'd go downstairs and I would listen to them. Anytime that my dad happened to have like a different band with a new drummer, the drummer would keep his kid at our house for rehearsal.
Right.
So it was like a new drummer would come in. I'd be like, let's check out this guy's kid. You know what I mean? Like, and then it was always better than mine. You know what I mean? So it'd be like, this guy has Peisty cymbals, and like I can just go, and they were always cool with me going down to jam. So I enjoyed that. But I still, to this day, honestly, I think a lot of my rhythmic and independence and coordination sensibility was developed during that time, because to sing and play, you're splitting some stuff. I mean, obviously you know that, but like, you know, I'm playing drums and singing lead vocals. So I think that was a big contributor to what I'm able to do.
I saw an interview with Levon Helm, and he actually said for him, it was almost easier.
Okay.
Like to sing while he was playing drums, because he said basically because obviously he's a very musical drummer. He was a very musical drummer. So he said, so I could adjust the feel to what I was doing vocally, or vice versa.
Yeah.
You know, and I could
see
if
that.
I wanted to, like, if I was going to lay into my vocals, I could lay into my drums, because it's all coming from one guy.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, you know, like,
yeah.
so, and it gives a little bit different sway to things than maybe, you know, just the drummer kind of following the vocalist is coming from one individual.
Yeah, I love that. That makes total sense.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's interesting. I saw an interview once with Robert Plant, and he was talking about when Zeppelin was together, and he said John Bonham was always getting up Jason to have him come play the drums. He'd be upstairs sleeping. He said they'd be having these parties, and they'd have all these amazing musicians at the party. They'd all be there, and you know, he said, and John Bonham go upstairs and go, Jason, you know, get up, come down and play. He said, and he was better than he was better than Bonzo. He was better than the Temptations drummer. He was better than all these drummers because he was the only one that was sober.
He was half asleep, but he was still better than there. Yeah.
So at that point in time, he's a little kid, but he's better than all these guys. And your kids grew up around music. You teach and still teach downstairs in your house, right?
Yeah.
So I had a studio downstairs in my place. So my kids, you know, parties and sessions and out in the backyard, you know, were guys like you know what I mean? Like guys in the Breaking Benjamin guys and the Badleys guys and studio musicians and people that were coming and going, and all these great players that were just hanging around in the backyard where the kids went out to play in the pool or something, you know? So, I mean, that's an interesting upbringing.
It is. Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
My wife always said, from drums being downstairs, she didn't have a pot to cook in that didn't have a dent in it, that it got rattled off the walls, you know, at some point.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just, you know, growing up in a family with music around all the time. Like you said, that rehearsal downstairs with your dad, and your dad's a cool, good guy. I like your dad a lot. I see him at a gig every once in a while. But I mean, that my kids always would say, you know, their life had a soundtrack. You know, I get up late on a Saturday, I'm eating cereal. There's underneath the floor,
there's stuff going on.
Yeah. Their life has a sound, and yours too.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, 9 years old, you got your first light band called Lightning.
Yes.
They broke up. Creative differences.
Right. Kind of doesn't work when there's two people, right?
Only two. You're like the White Stripes.
You have nobody to be able to say like, hey, I like what he's saying, or hey, I like what he's saying. But yeah, well, basically, that kind of stopped only because I had, from the time I was young, this is totally what I knew I was going to do. Like, I mean, I can't tell you ever a time when music was not in my life. I can't ever tell you a time when I did not know that like drums was going to be my thing. What I was going to do. There was a brief period in high school when I got really super into basketball. Like I was hardcore into basketball, and I did not play my drums quite as much during that time. But then post high school, then I just it just all came back again and all that stuff. So, but yeah, that was kind of the path leading up to the end of high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I remember correct me if I'm wrong, as far as our first intersections would have been, what's the name of that band? Squoosh?
The Squoosh.
Right?
Yes. You got.
I get it
see,
right?
I told you about your memory, man. It's
Yeah,
really
I
good.
still got it.
Yeah,
Still
you
got
do.
it.
You do.
I remember that band, and they had, you guys had opened for us a couple times.
Yes.
Mid-90s.
Yep.
Somewhere around there.
Yep.
And didn't you play with a Stevie Ray Vaughan band at one point?
Yeah. See,
Right?
Yeah.
I got it right?
You did. Absolutely.
Okay. So is that... So, were you doing those things simultaneously, or were they
Separately.
separately?
Yeah. So the three.
Like right out of high school, who'd you start playing with?
So out of high school, do you remember Jason DeVoli?
Yeah, I know
Okay,
Jason.
yeah. So
I haven't seen him in a while.
So
but-
Jason DeVoli and I got together and we formed a band called The Stand.
Okay.
And we actually did a 4-song demo here. So I remember, Susquehanna Sound from back that time. And the band was called The Stand, and we were almost all original. And I mean, for the time, I thought it was a really good band, but then that just ended up not working out. And then I think from there, I went to a band called Just Us, which was a completely different thing. It was called Just Us, the Great Pretenders, and they did music of the 50s and the 60s.
Cool.
Yes, and dressed the part, you know what I mean? So for one set, we did white shirts, white T-shirts, blue jeans, and just kind of that whole vibe. And I think one thing that's important to mention about those bands, like the Just Us thing and the Stevie Ray, is that what I was really able to do was like immerse myself in those styles. So when I had to learn music of the 50s and 60s, if you listen to that music, the drums are not that prominent, really. Like they're usually, especially if you're talking Bill Haley and the Comets, that type of thing, the drums are really low.
There's one microphone in the room.
Right. And so you had to learn how to play for the song because there wasn't a lot of stuff going on. So really immersed myself in that sound with the 50s and 60s. Then when I got the Stevie Ray Vaughan tribute thing, that was Riviera Paradise. And, I just said, okay, I'm going full on blues mode. You know what I mean? I would literally like sit at home, watch Stevie Ray Vaughan DVDs. I think back then it was still VHS, but watch this stuff, listen to it constantly because I wanted to speak that language authentically. I didn't want to just go in and say hey, I'm going to play the gig, but I'm going to do it my way. Like I really wanted to know different shuffles, playing for the song and on all that stuff. So there was the Stevie Ray, the Just Us, and then the Squoosh. That was sort of an odd period. I can't remember exactly where that was in time, but you were correct. Like we would open up for the Badleys at the Peppermint Lounge a couple times,
Sunbury.
stuff like that. Yeah. So that was kind of along that trajectory right there.
Yeah, the drummer for Stevie Ray, Chris Layton, is that right?
Chris Whipper Layton.
Yeah.
That's right. He
We
plays
play-
with Kenny Wayne Shepherd now.
Yeah, I played.
So-
I've been in different groups that have opened for Kenny Wayne Shepherd.
Okay.
He was there.
Yeah.
And we opened one time for a band called Storyville.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Remember them?
Oh my, amazing.
Yeah.
Do you play with them?
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah. It was, but it was Chris Layton,
Tommy Shannon.
Tommy
on
Shannon.
bass. Yep. Double
Yeah.
Trouble.
This was we did a fundraiser in Austin.
Okay. See, this I did not know.
Oh, you don't know the
this
story?
Is awesome. No.
But it was wild because we're standing backstage, and so it was kind of like a fundraiser celebrity auction show,
Yep.
Honestly, why we were there, I'm not really sure. Because it was like all these legendary Austin, Texas musicians.
Right.
There was Tommy Shannon, Chris Layton, Storyville.
Yep.
They had like a big, tall, like kind of almost albino looking guy.
Yes. Yep.
Who was the lead singer.
Lead singer. Mhm.
Yeah, and he was they were awesome. And Jimmy Vaughn.
Mm-hmm.
So you're standing backstage. It's Charlie Sexton, Jimmy Vaughn, Eric Johnson, most of Double Trouble,
Right.
like standing in a room this size.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why am I here? Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome just to get to see that and just kind of hang out around that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, what a culture
Absolutely.
that town has. What a musical. I mean, and that's not even. Oh, Todd Snyder was there.
Okay.
But and that's not even scratching the
Surface,
of
right? Yeah.
But yeah. So we played with them once.
That is awesome. I did not know that, and that is like sometimes I think about what a really killer albums, like that maybe they never got anywhere, but like you just know that this album, like pound for pound, is just amazing. And the first Storyville one for me is absolutely that. Like if nobody's ever heard it, go listen to the first Storyville one. They did a second record, but I think that it was done after that. But it was just a phenomenal album. Really, really good vibes, really good ballads. So yeah, that's awesome. You got to play with them. I did not know that.
Yeah, just that one time.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, you were mentioning doing the '50s thing, and there's I think it's, I don't know if it's Netflix or Hulu, where there's a special on Stevie Van Zandt.
Okay.
And I didn't realize how immersed in this sort of doo-wop thing he was pre-Springsteen.
Did not know that either.
You know?
Yeah.
So now he does underground garage, his radio shows, and he got involved early on. Basically, he came in to the Springsteen world, even though they were friends. He wasn't in the early band.
Okay, right.
He came in because he was in the studio with them arranging horns, because they couldn't get the horn parts to 10th Avenue Freeze Out or one of those kind of songs.
Wow. Okay.
So he was there, and he's like, well, I'm not going to let these people screw up my friend's record. You know?
Right, yeah.
They're not doing this correctly. And then he'd start putting it together, because he'd cut his teeth pre-Springsteen playing with all these doo-wop groups.
Okay.
Which was why he eventually called himself Little Steven, because, you know, like there's Little Walter.
Yeah, okay.
You know, that's why he changed, because he was Miami
that.
Steve Van Zandt at first, but then he changed it when he started doing his solo thing. He changed it to Little Steven because of like Little Walter and all these old doo-wop groups. And my point is, the point I want to make, and to connect to you, is all this stuff was pre-success for Steven Van Zandt and you know. But I mean, to this day, what he does today, that still informs. Like, you carry all this stuff with you through your whole career, and you always go back to it and you always use it.
Yep.
You know, and playing in a '50s group or learning how to play these different Texas swing kind of grooves or shuffles probably doesn't translate all that much into Breaking Benjamin, but you use it a lot now.
Right.
You know?
Definitely use it a lot now. Yeah. And some of the Breaking Benjamin stuff, like, granted, there weren't shuffles or anything like that, but doing some different styles of music, a good example of something like that would be, I remember when Ben and I were putting together the song "Next to Nothing" on the first record. Yeah,
it's a good one.
And you know, he just played a couple of chords at the very beginning. And I remember we were in my dad's basement, the same one that's where we wrote "Saturate." Pretty much was like in my dad's basement, just he and I. And he played the first couple chords, and I think he was just checking his guitar. Yeah, and I was like, "What's that?"
Yeah,
he's like, "What do you mean?" He said, I said, "No, do that again." And I was like, "That's really good." So the groove I started playing then was almost kind of like I was listening to a lot of Steely Dan. Yeah. So the groove I have on there, like, I very easily could have just played, you know, a straight up 2 and 4 groove with like eighth notes in the hi-hat, but there's like a little like groups of 3 on the hi-hat, so it's like a you know, so just the music that I listened to at the time and that had come before that always informs those types of things. And I really feel that I feel fortunate to have had those experiences, because it did give me that huge vocabulary. Yeah.
I saw this interview with Dave Grohl, and he said that a lot of Nirvana was based on the Gap band.
Right. Yeah. Yes. The intro for like "Smells Like Teen Spirit."
It was Tony Thompson.
Right. Yeah.
So you know,
I mean, like, and if he would have never disclaimed that or whatever, like, no one would ever thought that. Yeah.
And that's why I think when I work with musicians, sometimes I think some of them are a little too good. Number one, too good because they overplay, and too good because they think what they're borrowing or whatever is like really readily apparent. And sometimes it is, but 99% of the time, you know, whatever kind of gumbo you're making is just making something new. And that's all it is. It's all one big song. You know, everybody's built on what has come before.
Yeah.
And all these, like I said, from the beginning, playing Stevie Ray Vaughan covers and the 50s kind of vibe, and immersing yourself into that, all the way up through to playing a more heavy style of Breaking Benjamin. These little elements make their way in.
They do.
You know?
Absolutely.
In your case. So,
and that carries over to, you know, sessions, so like
right.
if we're doing something and, being able to play for whatever is called upon, whatever that style might be, or just having that. I think it's really good to have that knowledge, but then to know like how to use it and how not to at the same, having that balance of like, I'm going to do this style, but it doesn't have to be crazy we don't have to inject a Motown feel because this is a Motown feel. Do you know what I'm saying? Like having that balance between the two. So,
yeah. I mean, if you're playing something and the song calls for Butch Trucks, in the middle, you aren't going to start going. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then,
well, you didn't like that?
That sounds great. I thought it made it exciting.
Yeah.
That everybody that loves that style is going to be like,
Right. What are you doing? This is not inventive. This is just blasphemous, right? Hey, can I mention something about the Allman Brothers? Real
Sure,
quick?
do
okay.
it.
So just we're talking about stuff that was influencing me and whatnot. So, since I was a teenager, I'm a huge Allman Brothers fan. Just love them.
I mentioned you guys in other podcasts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so when I was a teenager, I'd say like late teens, I got really into the Allman Brothers band. Tried to grow some mutton chops and everything in the whole 9 yards.
Did you?
Yeah. Well, they were very bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, but it was like my hair, my ponytail.
Yeah.
Mutton chops. But the percussion.
You should have
end of
kept
this,
that for
well, there are a couple photos and like how you look at them now and you're just like, wow, man, you were really full going on for that thing. And I don't know if it was working, but so J-Mo, right?
Yeah.
J-Mo and Butch Trucks. I would sit and practice and try to play both parts at the same time.
Did you know it was two parts?
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Right.
So like if they would go into different like sections now. You really can't do that with 100% accuracy because you're playing two drummers, right? You don't have 4 or 8 limbs, whatever, right? Yeah.
Right.
But I would try to, and I would like pick out different things. So maybe, I would like Butch Trucks was more of the groove guy. J-Mo was the painter, and he would do like different little accents and stuff like that. So trying to do those two things at the same time, that was another thing, just like the vocals and the singing and the playing at the same time informed those types of ideas that would seep their way into my playing. So, but still to this day, really enjoy the Allman Brothers immensely. So
we played a lot with Greg, and we played with the Allman Brothers a few times. And I remember backstage standing behind J-Mo's kit, and I couldn't find any. It wasn't that I couldn't make any rhyme or reason of what he played. I couldn't really make any rhyme or reason of when he played.
Oh, was he like at that time? Was he just kind of passive and kind of taking?
He just kind of come in and out.
Yeah.
Just kind of come in and out. Just seemed it was like incredibly free.
Yeah, and there's a lot of live recordings even from the 90s and like the 2000s where when they would go into their version of drums, like the Dead had drum space and the Allman Brothers had their thing. And you can tell which drummer's which when they're playing.
Yeah.
And like there's some stuff that like J-Mo is a jazz guy.
Yeah.
And there's stuff that he's playing that you don't really ever get to hear him because like you said, he's kind of laying back, comes in here and there. But I mean, there was times when I would listen to some stuff that he would be doing. I was going, man, this dude is a monster. But just, he was playing I want to say a complimentary role because they were together, but you get what I'm saying. He was playing
exactly what I was getting out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he came through, and this is what this conversation is a lot like. We haven't even gotten to your Breaking Benjamin days, but this is a conversation, like you say, you never had any doubt from the beginning. That's what you wanted to do. This is like a person. I saw this interview with Flea, and he was just talking about how he just saw himself as a student for his whole life. I don't, I just always want to learn more, and all the great ones, you never stop learning about this stuff, and you want to hear it all.
Yeah,
and just kind of piece in what you can use, and kind of know the history of it, and know where it all came from, and the guys that were involved, and you can just kind of relate to, the way these things happen. But anyway, my point was kind of J-Mo came through, I think, like Dwayne's, Muscle Shoals. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah.
He was one of the drummers.
Yep.
At Muscle Shoals and Dwayne went to Muscle Shoals, and Dwayne sort of played the outro solo on Wilson Pickett's Hey Jude.
Hey Jude, right? Yeah.
Right? And that was like, who the hell is this guy?
Yes. Yeah.
And that was sort of what started sending the actual Allman Brothers on their path.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then, once again, pulling the past into the present, they got themselves rolling, and then they went back. He went back and got J-Mo.
Yes. Yeah.
And the rest is history. Yeah.
Indeed it is.
So, okay, well, let's get to Breaking Benjamin.
Okay.
So was there anything else I missed in the timeline? Those Squoosh couldn't have been that too much before Breaking Benjamin.
No, the Squoosh. No, it was. Well, so now that you said that, so the Squoosh came before the thing that I did with Riviera Paradise,
Okay.
which was the Stevie Ray Vaughan. Okay, so there was when I was doing. So I started playing with Randy. He was the band leader. I started playing with Randy in 1998.
Oh, wow.
And
Really close.
yeah, 98. And that was from that point forward, like I've been self-employed since then, since 1998. So like whatever that is, like 27 years or something like that, right? And so we were playing like 4 or 5 times a week, but we were playing in Maryland and like York and stuff like that because he lived in York. So we would travel down that way. The bass player was Mike Sowers. Did you know Mike at all?
Not well. I know that name. And
Okay.
I can't remember. I'm sure I've met Mike.
Yeah. I'm sure you have at some point in the musical pantheon or whatever.
I absolutely. I'm working on it.
Yeah. So he and I would drive. He lived in Sunbury, so he and I would drive, 4 or 5 days a week down 83, like playing all that stuff. And we did that for a while. And like for me, it was great because I was playing, I was out in the bars and everything. But it was kind of funny because Mike would do a lot of the driving. And when we would get home really late at night, I could like sleep until noon if I wanted to. But like Mike would go do his day gig.
Go to work.
Yeah. So, I mean, we might get home at 4 or 5 in the morning and he was working from 8 to 5. And some days he would do the job and then we would turn around and go back down there. So, but yeah, I was playing with Randy and then it got to the point of where, so during Randy, Ben had come back from California.
Remember, he went to the West Coast.
Yes, he went to the West Coast. Ben came back from California and he came to visit me and he was just like, he had 4 or 5 songs on a cassette. It's kind of weird to say that was an actual cassette. Mm-hmm. And always knew the dude was like immensely talented.
Yeah.
So I listened to them and he's like, I just want to see if you want to play together, be my drummer or whatever. And I was just like, yeah, I think so. And so like, but at the same time I had the Randy thing going on. So Ben and I kind of on the side just sort of started jamming together, writing some stuff, putting some things together. And then it just got to the point of where I had to make a decision to say, okay, on one hand, I'm playing a lot during the week and making pretty decent money, but my heart and my passion is over here doing this, more of a rock thing, being creative, all that stuff. And so at one point I just made the decision to just play with Ben, like full time. And then I didn't have that income, it wasn't as steady anymore. So like, and I was teaching at the time. But yeah, so I went with Ben and then we kind of went from there and everybody thought I was crazy. Because they were saying like, what you do? You're a musician, like making decent money, playing a bunch of times a week. Like, why are you leaving that to go just do this original thing? And I it's like you just have that feeling. Like I really did not have a doubt that if we could like do something together, that we could do something with it. And that's what happened.
There were like a half dozen moves over the course of anybody that came into the Breaking Benjamin camp during those early years that I was like, man, that's nuts. I mean, I've never seen it fall together like that ever.
Okay.
Before or since. Like the Badleys thing, like us getting a record deal it took 6 years of steady work with the same lineup.
Yeah.
Playing everywhere, for nothing. And before everybody went, well, okay, all right. Before the business at large, but it was like a soap opera or something, like the way the Breaking Benjamin thing unfolded. I'd never seen it like that ever.
Well, there was a point where my dad made the comment. I remember my dad saying to me, like, so from the time that we kind of decided to make it sort of a serious thing until we got record deal. I remember my dad saying like that happened like, pretty fast.
It did, yeah.
And it was interesting because I see that now, but when he said that to me, like at the time, I wasn't thinking that, because you know how it is when you live something and you're kind of you're part of the ascent, like, because you have to remember that we were doing Media 5 gigs, and I was putting together, like, there was no social media then, so like I was putting together flyers and we were putting them on tables when we would go out and do gigs.
Postcards
so like
in the mail.
Exactly. So like, I mean, I was there for all of that, but like, you're right, it did happen really fast. But I think when you're living that, you kind of see it more of as like a slow burn at the same time. So
they don't see all the
they don't see all behind the trenches.
They don't see you at 9.
They don't.
Yeah. So you've been at this since you were 9.
Yeah. But I mean, even like with the Breaking Benjamin stuff, I mean, there was things that it was quick, but there was also steps that had to happen too.
Sure. Was Plan 9 you? I've heard that name.
Yeah. We were called Plan 9 in the beginning.
Okay.
Horrible band name.
Yeah. Okay. That was Plan 9, and then by the time you came over to the studio to work with us. Mm-hmm. It was Breaking Benjamin then, so
yes,
it was you and Ben and Bug.
One of the I don't know if things would have taken the same path if we had not come to work with you guys. Like, you guys were super integral to like helping us with our music, like with the sound. I remember like one of my favorite recollections of working with you and Paul was we were talking about trying to get the drums to sound big. And you guys used to always talk about the $10,000 difference, or was it $100,000 difference, or something like that?
That's
yeah. So I remember walking in the studio one day, and you guys had separate speakers set up, and I just kind of was walking in, and I was like, oh, what's going on here? And you guys were like, you wanted big drums, so you're like Bob Rock drums, because that was kind of thing. So I think what you were doing, if I'm not mistaken, is you were recording the sound of the room from the speakers. Is that
the drums out into the speakers, then recording the room?
Yeah, there you go. So that was super cool, and you guys got us connected with Larry, with our manager, which was obviously huge.
Yeah.
So becoming really good friends with you and Paul was a huge trampoline for us to spring off of. Yeah.
It was, I always said, I mean, if you're looking at the timeline I always said, like, this area, Northeast PA to Central Pennsylvania, kind of fights above its weight. There's quite about a bit of music that has come out of here, and we've recorded a lot of music, and there's been a lot of things that have started here that have went out into the national and international stratosphere for a very small market.
Yes.
It fights above its weight. I always said that in your case, well, if you back up, like I said, it took us 6 years to just get in the door. We got in the door, then we got into label hell, and we went out. Our first tour was successful, and I've told this story a million times, and I'm even sick of hearing it. But I'll make a point, because I remember us, and then all this label hell happened, and then we were in limbo, and it was like 2 years of sitting around and not going back out, and that was a tragedy. And then you get a little bitter.
Sure.
And I remember everything was kind of going wrong for us, and we went to some little club up in Wilkes-Barre, and the band Fuel was playing in there because they were from Harrisburg, and they're talking like, "Yeah, man, we're getting this record deal, man. We're going to be rock stars or whatever." And like, yeah. And it worked for them, I mean,
right.
It had several classic rock hits, and I mean, they imploded later, like we all do. Right. So there was them, that kind of. And then that was a good thing for them. They were good guys, and we were pals with them. And then you guys came along, and I remember you started recording, and everybody knew. I remember the very first song you guys did, Paul wasn't there because he wasn't he was on vacation or something. It just happened that I did that session, and I remember sending Paul a message, man, these guys are really freaking good, you know.
Okay.
I remember saying this is a good band, you know, and then as more songs started coming in, you know, you guys coming back, this is strong, you know, this is strong. And then I thought we were thinking back to, okay, go back to, we're 6 years in, what would you do differently? You know?
Okay, right.
And that was sort of the impetus with you guys was, I said, well, what would I do differently? And I said, well, you know, everybody in our camp was in it, hardworking, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, including Terry, who managed the band and all that. So I think really our thought process was with you guys was, you know, as far as like, what would you do differently? It's just like, basically, well, when the world turned around, I want somebody in my camp that's been there before.
Yes.
You know, I don't want somebody that's learning this with me.
Right.
You know, so
I've heard you and Paul talk about that a little bit because I mean, I've listened to some of the episodes and like, you didn't really have the mentorship that that would have really helped you guys. Is that what you're saying?
At the time, because like I said, when the world turns around, you got to know what to do right then.
Yeah.
You got to know the right move. You got to know who to call. You got to know which deal to take. You got to know which tour to take, where to go, because you get that shot. You get that little window to kind of get your stake in the ground.
Yep.
And sometimes it implodes anyway. But it's a different world now than it was then. You know. But then it was still kind of like you guys were on that last gasp of where it was really just about the music.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah.
You know, that was just, I mean, maybe 5 years before social media got started. You weren't worried about Instagram followers and creating content.
No.
You know, I mean, it was a great record that got on the radio and everybody saw the reaction. And then, you know, there's all these like centuries. I don't mean centuries as in years. I mean these little, you know, the centuries that are posted around the country from all these labels that'll pick up on something.
Right.
If there's something going on in a market, they'll find
the little antennas that are
the
up.
little antennas will go up.
Yep.
So I remember that was like while we were recording, that was a big thing was they need somebody in their corner that's been there before. And that was sort of who we knew, you know, that had been there before many, many times. I mean, Larry had managed Kiss, so
right.
I think he's done the thing.
But
you know?
Small sidebar, okay?
Yeah.
Because I want to hang on that, but like mentioning Larry and Kiss, so influences to me, right?
Yeah.
So my first thing was Kiss. Now, when Larry came on, I thought it was super cool, but it wasn't like Larry got hired because he managed Kiss. Do you know what I mean? It definitely helped. But when I was a kid, there's pictures of me with like Peter Criss makeup on. Yeah,
show it to Larry.
Yeah, I think probably I did. Yeah.
I think that was the no makeup Kiss that he managed.
It was, I believe. Yeah, but yeah, Kiss was huge, and you know, I would ask my parents like when they were on talk shows, wake me up, like if they're on whatever it was at the time, 11:30 at night, just wake me up so I can see this. And that was super cool. And I also have to mention, like, you know, talk about playing in clubs. And I just remember, this has come up a couple times recently. This is one of the reasons why I mention it. But I remember going to see Hybrid Ice at Knoebels, but they played in the roller rink, I think, right? Okay. And I just remember being young kid, going in there and just like, it was the smell of the heat and the amps that still like to this day, if I smell that, it has a certain like visceral thing or whatever. But I remember smelling that, and like to me, it was such a super cool smell. And then they were playing the song Moving in Stereo.
The Cars.
So I'm in there and I'm smelling the amps and like it's all hot and I hear the the siren at the beginning, and it was like sort of like creepy, you know, especially when you're a kid. I was like, this is freaking amazing, you know. So it's like it just reinforced that thing of this is what I need to do with my life. This is what I want to do. It's funny just having those monumental memories like that. But with the Breaking Benjamin thing, so I agree with you when you say like we were kind of one of the last bands before social media, all that stuff. I believe we were also one of the last bands that kind of got like a decent size contract before it turned into this whole thing of like, if you don't have a hit, you're out. There were no more labels who were really into like developing artists anymore. That was because things were changing. And I do remember though that we were around at the beginning of the whole Napster thing. And so the record company expected, they from what they've told me, like the record company expected Saturate to do better than it did, like especially out of the gate. There wasn't anybody's fault or nothing happened, but I remember wanting to make sure that we could continue with that we would go in these different markets. I remember playing in Kansas City. It was like an outdoor thing. And, you know, sometimes like you were there. So sometimes you can maybe look at the radio reports or whatever and see like who's playing us a lot and who's not. And, you know, you kind of get a feel for what things are.
Like faxes or
or exactly.
Maybe an email, but
yep. So we go to Kansas City and we're not being spun there hardly at all.
Right.
All these people are singing along to the songs. And we're kind of going, like on one hand, you're going, well, this is super cool because they know the stuff and like they're into us. Yeah. But we're going, how do they know this? And then just talking to people like after the show and just questioning them. And they're like, yeah, you know, my friend got a copy and he burned it for me. And then like, you know, I burned it for my buddy. And so it was sort of this weird thing where you're happy that your music was getting out there.
They're all stealing it. Yeah.
But they're all stealing it. And then I even remember going on to like doing different interviews at that time. And just talking about that, because what I was trying to have people hopefully understand was, we love the fact that you're into the band, but you have to understand that like if you don't go out and buy their records, and this is not just for us, this is for any band, if you're not going to go out and support their records, the band that you love might not be around next year.
Right.
That's just the reality of the situation. So, so the social media thing hadn't come along yet, but that was the beginning of the Napster stuff. And
yeah. I mean, there are all sorts of things about supporting a group. If you're having a show or something, an outdoor show, and you're doing a show, and everybody's like, well, I don't know what the weather's going to be like. I don't know, you know. Sometimes it's happened to us recently, you know, where a show gets canceled because nobody buys advance tickets.
Right.
You know, they're all waiting till the last minute because they can go grab them on StubHub, or they can, you know, or wherever, or
True.
or if it's an outdoor show, there's not really a cap on there's not a capacity, so then nobody buys the tickets ahead of time, so the venues gets all spooked. And
they're waiting to the last second to make the call. Am I going to go to the show? Am I just going to not spend the money?
And you can understand why somebody wants it for free.
Yeah,
but I can understand if I could get it for free, why do I buy it? But at the same time, it's unfortunate for the bands and stuff. But I always thought about that, about you guys. It was just kind of the last hurrah of big record deal, big recording budget, no social media.
Yeah.
And it was, you kind of snuck in there. And I always said that, like those bands in the early 90s and the 90s that are still alive just hit it perfect. They clean up now, you know, because like the brand is established.
Yep.
When all these things were in place.
Yep.
And now they can just own it.
They're riding the wave of the nostalgia
that
was created, you know, back then. Yeah.
Back then, so they're doing really well.
Yeah.
And so that's interesting. But I remember, I mean, I don't know, there wasn't a stinker on that first EP. I mean, there wasn't. I mean, I don't know if I'll remember every track. Polyamorous, Water, Home, Medicate. Is there one more?
You got it, man. Come on. I know you dig deep.
Shallow Bay.
See? Yeah, you got it. Double high fives. Yes.
So
that's it. Shallow Bay. Yeah.
And and I just remember Paul and I were like, this is great. But it was like this groundswell. Said never saw it again, or before that. It did not happen to us that way. You know, it was just like, you guys come in with this great EP, you get this EP going, and then you got Media 5. Lynn Carey was involved with helping you guys out early.
Yep.
Love Lynn. You know, I always love Lynn. Lynn's great.
Mm-hmm.
And then Freddie.
Yep.
Who's been here before.
Yep.
and Freddie was out of his mind.
He still is.
He still is out of his mind, but
in a lovingly way.
I love Freddie. I was like so happy. I was like, he brought down his nephew like a couple months ago, and we did a track, and I was just so happy to see him.
Well, when that happened,
you played on it. Yeah.
I was here, but that was like only the second time that I had been around Freddie since like back when he was
back in the day.
Yeah, because he became our tour manager for a short bit, and then he continued them when I wasn't in the band anymore. But yeah, and you talking about this stuff just makes me think that perhaps a good reason why we did have that quick ascent was as you said, the music was really good and the playing was really good, but we also had people who were there around us that knew what they were doing and knew how to support us. So like you and Paul, for sure.
Yeah.
You and Paul connected us with Larry.
Yeah. Recorded the record. Yeah.
And you recorded the record. Yeah. And so you guys connected us with Larry, and Lynn was there.
Yeah.
And I don't remember who got connected with Freddie, So there was a team.
Yeah.
And
sort of organically
exactly
fell together really fast.
I still remember little fun moments like this. I remember Larry came to meet with us at Saturation Acres. And I remember like shortly after we decided to take Larry on or whatever, and maybe it was even at the meeting, but the talk came up of how we would be traveling. And somebody mentioned like, well, would they be in a van or a van or a bus? And Larry was just like, absolutely a bus. Larry, absolutely a bus. And then I remember you and Paul were like, yes. It was just like so sweet that you guys were like champ, because you like, you knew that would be so important. And like for those bands who hadn't had that same luxury, that was huge. So I remember
in our case, we were trying to save money.
Yeah.
So we spent a lot of time traveling in 2 vans. So we'd be playing, doing an opening slot on a tour with somebody that had a bus and a driver who slept all day while everybody's sound checking and playing. So then you got to go from Tallahassee, Florida to Norfolk, Virginia overnight. And the drivers, in the other bus is just driving away. And we're all, trying to get there and keep up, with 2 vans.
Yeah.
And do those kind of long drives that are just logistically impossible almost. We'd get there.
Yeah.
But but my point is then everything went south anyway. So we're like, shit, we should have taken the buses. Spend the money.
Yeah.
We're trying to like save dough and
right.
You know what I mean? And like, it's kind of like an illusion. All of it goes into your record royalty account and into recoup, and that's a whole nother podcast. That's another.
It's another podcast. I'll just drop a quick thought based upon that. So I remember one of our first big tours was with 3 Doors Down.
Yeah.
And I remember those guys saying to us, because they were really cool guys. Like
they're
really,
nice fellows.
Yeah,
like
really
Southern
nice
boys,
to us.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Really nice to us. And
played with them one time.
Okay. I just remember, talking with them and just saying, hey, do you guys have any advice that you could impart upon us that would be helpful? And they just said, don't let the record company talk you into huge, elaborate video productions, things like that, because they said it's your money at the end of the day. They'll make... What's that?
Did that.
Okay. Right. Yeah. And there's like, they'll make it seem lavish, and they'll bring in this and they'll bring that, and like, it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially, but that's just going to be tacked on to your what you can recoup. And so the more money you're spending, whether it's tour support or video shoots or whatever, the more money you have to give back before you can actually recoup what you made. But that's the stuff that they don't tell you.
They don't tell you that. Yeah. And they and it's like the thing that they're recouping it out of is like that much of what's being made.
Right.
It's not like every dollar goes to your loan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like it takes forever.
Yeah.
That was funny when we made our first like real music video. The catering budget was more than we had spent on the album.
Wow. That's crazy, but I'm not surprised. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Wow.
The catering budget, not the video.
Yeah.
The catering, the
Just
food
catering.
for the day was more than we had spent, because we'd done the record ourselves, just like we'd done your EP.
Okay.
And we had done the record ourselves, and the catering budget was more than the album.
Snaky, isn't it?
Yeah, and all this happens within a couple, however many months.
Right.
So you're you're getting hurled into this other world, and you know, once again, need somebody
Need
there.
somebody there, exactly.
Somebody
Yeah.
that's been there
Right.
before that can say to you, "Hey, guys,
Yep.
don't do that."
Yep.
And but then, you know, back to finishing up as far as the ascent to Hollywood Records was, I just remember, okay, well, there's you three, and then you guys came in, and as I remember it, tell me if I'm wrong, you were making that first song to enter some sort of Battle of the Bands contest, in my memory, right? Wasn't there like some sort of a...
With you guys?
No, I think there, or maybe you just made the song and then you entered it anyway. It was like, but I remember you entered into some like up in Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, whatever the X was called then.
It was probably, I imagine it probably was polyamorous, if that was the case.
No, I feel like it was the Medicaid song.
It could have been. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
but I remember you making the song for that. Then okay, well then Freddie's in, and Freddie's telling me that this is going to be a bidding war, and I'm an old, wise, and jaded veteran at this point. And I'm like, oh yeah, sure,
Right.
man.
Whatever, man.
Then I said, well, if it's that good, Freddie, you know, I hadn't heard you guys at this point. And I'm like, I said, if it's that good, we'll call Larry, you know, and you know, and eventually he did come to the studio, you know, and meet with you guys after we got the music recorded. And as you know, with each subsequent song, it became very clear, like, okay, Freddie's correct. You know, I didn't know you that well, other than you being in the opening bands. I didn't know Ben at all.
Yep.
And then that's the beginning of the intrigue, really. I mean, the EP's done, then you press up a couple thousand copies, and then they start flying out the door.
Yep.
And then you guys are playing. I mean, when I first started coming to see you, it was whatever place in Hazleton, Cousins.
Yep. That was
There's like 7-8 people there, counting the sound guy and us, and me and Kelly. You know, and I'm like, sounds just like it sounded 2 years later.
Okay.
It sounded great.
Oh, thank you.
You know,
Thanks,
well,
man.
a little bit different because there was other people that came in. I mean, but then it was like, okay, well then, all of a sudden, Mark Lepaski's in Lifer, and he's on the road, as I remember, in a signed band.
Yeah.
And he quits his signed band to come back, and you guys are still playing your EP and a few other songs and Tool covers and things like that.
Yeah.
So he leaves his signed band, quits, comes home, joins you guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
May I share a small story?
Yeah.
Okay. So you talking about Mark coming in the band?
Yeah.
Makes me think like I know the exact. I'm literally driving in the car right now, the night that he calls. Like and like currently like I can feel like myself in the car. So Ben and I had played at the Coal Hole.
Yeah.
That night, play at the Coal Hole. Go Coal Hole, and we opened up for Emily's Toy Box.
Yeah.
And we had a disagreement. We could say
Emily's Toy Box?
No. Ben and I.
Oh, you?
Yeah. Ben and I had, and people know it can be sometimes difficult in that situation. I'll just say that.
We'll
right?
leave it at that.
We'll leave it at that. And
All right. Okay.
So
you're in charge.
well, you know,
I know what I'm saying. Yeah,
we'll see what
that's
happens.
cool. Cool.
But so I'm driving home with Yvette, who's my wife now.
Yeah.
Driving home with Yvette, and I'm saying to her, I'm like, I just don't know. I was like, the music is great. I don't know about if I can continue to do this because it was just like bad attitude. Because we were opening up for another band, like I would always make out the set lists, right? And I just remember he came over and just would cross songs off. And I'm like, what are you doing? Well, you know, we're not getting paid for this and that or whatever. So that's kind of how that would go. And so, but for me, I'm like, you know, this is an opportunity for us to play in front of more people. I wanted to, you know, give a good presentation. Long story short, driving home, while we were playing, there was a message that was left from Mark on my phone. This is like serendipity or whatever you want to call it. And he tells me that he decided he would love to come and join Ben and I, and he was not going to be doing the Lifer thing anymore. And it was kind of, that was what we needed at the time. You know what I mean? Because otherwise it was just Ben and Bug and I. And I don't know if it would have continued much longer if we hadn't brought in Mark to sort of be Derek Smalls
Yeah.
so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And Mark was a great bass player, so that's how that was able to kind of go from a potentially bad situation into something that was okay. I think we're going to be okay with this, and then we kept going.
Yeah.
So Mark came in, and then Aaron decided to leave as well because he saw what was going on over here. And I remember the first time that Aaron ever came down for a rehearsal. We're still in my dad's basement over behind Dunkin' Donuts, you know where it is right now. And we're in the basement, and we started writing the song Wish I May. It was first track on Saturate. We went through a little bit of it, and I just remember getting done with, doing most of it or whatever, and Aaron's just like, is this really going to be this easy? Because we were just on the same, musically, we were just on the same wavelength. Everybody had strength and confidence in their playing, and it was just, you don't get that type of chemistry every day,
No.
and then so that was just a thing, and we just felt that. And I could talk about some other club experiences then if you want me to, but we can. I just wanted to leave that there. That Mark calling was huge for sure.
So maybe it was sort of on the edge of maybe, okay, well, screw it, we can't do this anymore. Or
Potentially,
I can't stick this out.
Yeah.
And then that was just like at that crucible moment where it's like, okay, enough already. I just, I mean, a lot of that too is, you got to swallow the whole pill, because not only the music, and I'm still talking before you even get to the way it is now of social media and content and all those other things you got to do.
Sure.
Yeah, but when you're just dealing just in terms of music, the music and what's actually coming out the speakers is only a part of it. You got to live with these people 24/7.
Yep.
You got to deal with them. You got to be in business with these people. You're going to share in triumphs and tragedy and everything that happens.
You're married to these people.
You're married to them. You're more than married to them.
Right.
Married people get up and go to work.
Right.
Somewhere else.
Yeah, right.
So you don't.
You're in the same bubble together all the time.
Even that. Musicians, most people don't have the experience of coming home and like, what do I do today? Nobody's going to tell me what to do today. Nobody's handing me a paper telling me where I have to be every hour of this day.
Right. Yeah.
That takes a while to get used to when you come off the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so you gotta. If you can't function with each other, all the great music in the world isn't going to save you unless you're making just so much insane money. Because early on, any band, you're running a volunteer organization.
Yeah.
You're not making enough money, especially if you're trying to do your own thing. It's a volunteer organization. Nobody's doing it for the money. They're doing it for some dream goal or whatever reason, but they're certainly not doing it for money early on. So if you can't keep it together long enough, I never knew that. I never knew that you guys were like kind of on the cusp of maybe, okay, this isn't going to work out at all. But it was like a soap opera, because it was like, well, Freddie's like, oh, it's going to be a bidding war, and I'm like, well, okay, well, if it's good, then it was like, okay, then the music starts getting made. It's like, okay, all right, yeah, man, it's good. Calling me, then all of a sudden it's like, well, wait a minute, this guy over here quit a band and he's got a deal, but he's coming off the road, and he's going to join. Then it's like, well, Aaron, I know Aaron. Okay, well, Aaron quit. Aaron's coming over. Okay, here's the lineup. Here's the lineup. You were playing to 7 people. Okay, all of a sudden the clubs are packed within 6 months. Within another 3 months, they're packed with label people. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Freddie's locking himself into in the radio station and playing the record when he's not supposed to. Who knows whatever. You're selling CDs in these local markets, and you know what I mean. And it was just like this insane trajectory of things going on from me being once removed. I still have a CD of like the original rough mixes from the first thing, and then and I still have the original artwork because we pressed up helped you guys get the records pressed up, and so it was like all that stuff I still have. I had this little tiny pedal. It was this little Dan Electro pedal. There's a little yellow one that was called a tuna melt that was
Okay.
on the demo was the intro sound of Polyamorous.
Oh,
You know, it was that.
Yes, yeah.
They redid it for the album, but it was what we used. So I like gave it to Ben, and he gave it back to me like 3 years later or something.
Okay.
You know, it's just little things like $12.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, right.
The first thing that they ever hear on the radio is this little friggin' yellow,
Yeah, right,
this
it's
little
great.
yellow pedal. It was mayhem. And then I was like, oh my God, we're signing with Hollywood Records. You know, a big deal, big huge deal, and off you went. And then that was rocky. Once you got out there, as I remember the calls coming back.
hence having some mentorship is very in this way. There is we'll go there. I just want to mention one thing. So you were talking earlier about the quick ascent, right? Mm. And I mentioned some little fond memories along the way, things that we did together at the studio and whatnot. But I remember that Ben and I used to play at the Voodoo Lounge.
Yeah.
We were opening up. We were actually opening up for Mark and Aaron, and they were Strangers with Candy and then Lifer. But Ben and I were able to play at the Voodoo Lounge every Thursday. And what they would do is, you talked about at Cousins, there's nobody there except for like you and the staff. And on Thursday nights, they would cut the room in half, and they would put the big black curtain up to make it look like nothing was behind where we were playing. But they did it just so that it wouldn't look like, hey, nobody's here. There wasn't anybody there, but they tried to make it look more like that. I would remember at the end of the night, going up to the bar, sitting down. The owner was Dino. And I would every Thursday I'd be like, hey, getting paid. Like, Dino, man, like, when do you think we can play on the main stage? You know, we just really wanted to play on the main stage, have one of our own shows. And I just remember he would say, oh, you know, just keep doing what you're doing, you know, and you'll get there. And then from that to not too much long later, not being able to come into a side entrance because it was like you couldn't do that back then. So having to walk in the front of the building, and it literally taking a half hour to get from the front of the building just back to that. Do you remember that backstage room on the right? Yeah. Just to get back to that room. But just looking around and thinking to myself, like, this is really freaking cool. You know what I mean? Just having gone from, you know, almost begging, when can we play on the main stage, and having nobody there, to all these people are here to see us, you know?
Yeah.
It was really neat. So,
Yeah. Then the club's thinking, well, sooner, you know, how long can I keep these guys believing that they're not filling my club, so I don't have to actually pay them?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right
so,
yeah.
So, yeah, that was, yeah, I remember you guys playing that gig. I don't know if it was that Thursday gig, but it was, you were playing at that place and you were opening up for somebody. But it was a cover band.
Okay.
And I remember one of the guys in the cover band saying to Ben, he was saying something like, well, you know, I drove this nice car here tonight, you know, and I'm going to retire at 55 or something. They had sort of a whole sort of spreadsheet worked out for their careers.
Okay.
As playing in this cover band. And like, and he said to Ben, but then you drove up here with him. And I don't know if it was you or whoever it was, like another musician in some shitty car that you guys were driving at the time. You know, and I think he was sort of making the point of, you know, this original thing isn't going to do anything for you guys, you know. He was kind of off. Yeah, he was off. He was really, really, really off.
Well,
you know, and we were just sitting there, and I don't know, you know, having gone through it about a half of a decade earlier, we were, you know, the music's there, you know what I mean? That was kind of our thing. It's great, and we'll you know, we were rooting for it, certainly. You know what I mean? So, but it was one of those things. Never before, never since. And it was just kind of like an end of an era that you guys got in under the curtain before it closed.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, but you know, maybe I'll stop there for this one. We've been talking for a long time, because I want to do 2 episodes.
Sure.
So we'll go on. So that kind of takes us right up to the deal.
Okay.
And we'll talk about the deal and all the intrigue and where you are now next.
Sounds good.
All right, buddy.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Yes.
This podcast was produced by Stone State Entertainment.